Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow as he stared at the rejection email on his cracked phone screen. Another construction job. Gone. His daughter Lily's birthday was in 3 days, and he'd promised her the bike she'd been drawing pictures of for months. The single father closed his eyes, remembering how her face had lit up when he'd said yes, not knowing then that he'd lose his job the very next week. In that moment, sitting in his truck outside the unemployment office, Marcus made a choice that would change 2 lives. Forever, though he couldn't have imagined just how profound that change would be. The mansion on Elderwood Hill had been abandoned for nearly a decade. Everyone in the small town of Millbrook knew the story, or thought they did. Victoria Chen, the CEO of a tech empire worth billions, had purchased it years ago with grand plans for renovation. Then life happened, as it often does, and the property became just another line item on a corporate spreadsheet, forgotten among quarterly reports and board meetings. Marcus had driven past the property countless times, always wondering what could have been. He'd worked in construction for 15 years, building dreams for others while his own seemed perpetually out of reach. His wife Sarah had passed away 2 years ago, leaving him to raise 7-year-old Lily alone. Every day was a careful balance between being present for his daughter and desperately trying to keep their heads above water. It was Lily who first suggested it. In the innocent way children see solutions adults miss entirely. "Why don't you fix the sad house, Daddy?" she'd asked one evening as they drove past the overgrown estate. "Maybe the owner would pay you." Marcus had laughed it off initially, but the idea took root. What did he have to lose? He spent that night researching Victoria Chen, discovering a woman who'd built an empire from nothing but had seemingly disappeared from public life 3 years ago. The last interview he found showed a composed but exhausted woman talking about success in hollow terms that made him ache with recognition. The next morning, Marcus did something audacious. He drove to the mansion with his toolbox and simply started working. He began with the front garden, clearing away years of neglect. The roses that had once framed the entrance were still alive beneath the weeds, waiting for someone to believe in them again. He worked through the day, Lily bringing him sandwiches after school, her small hands helping pull weeds. Days turned into weeks. Marcus knew he should be job hunting, sending out resumes, but something kept pulling him back to Elderwood Hill. He replaced broken windows, repaired the sagging porch, restored the fountain in the front courtyard. He used his savings, money that should have gone to rent and groceries, to buy materials. Lily never complained about the macaroni and cheese dinners or the fact that her birthday had come and gone without the promised bike. Instead, she helped paint shutters on weekends, chattering about how happy the house must feel to be cared for again. Marcus left notes for the owner, documenting his work and his contact information, never expecting a response. What he didn't know was that Victoria Chen was watching. She'd received alerts about activity on the property and had initially assumed it was vandals. But her security cameras told a different story. A man working from dawn until dusk. A little girl with pigtails singing as she helped. Genuine care in every brushstroke and nail. Victoria found herself logging in daily to watch them work. This odd pair breathing life back into a place she'd given up on. Victoria hadn't been to Millbrook in 3 years. After her mother's death, the woman for whom she'd bought the mansion, planning to renovate it as a surprise, she'd thrown herself into work, using success as a shield against grief. The mansion was supposed to be a place where she could finally slow down, finally be a daughter instead of a CEO. But then her mother was gone, and the house became a monument to missed opportunities and words left unspoken. On a gray October morning, Victoria made a decision. She flew to Millbrook, rented a car, and drove to the mansion. She arrived to find Marcus on a ladder, replacing sections of the elaborate crown molding, while Lily sat on the porch reading aloud from a library book about architecture. "You're trespassing," Victoria said, though her voice carried no anger. Marcus nearly fell off the ladder. He climbed down quickly, placing himself between Victoria and Lily in an instinctively protective gesture. "Miss Chen, I'm Marcus Rivera. I've been leaving notes. I know I should have asked permission first, but He gestured helplessly at the house. "I couldn't stand to see it waste away." "Why?" Victoria's question was simple, but her eyes were complex, searching his face for the angle, the scheme, the hidden motive. Marcus was quiet for a moment. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. We'd talked about buying a fixer-upper together, making it beautiful. She had this vision. He looked at the mansion with something like reverence. She never got to see it happen. And this place, it felt like it was dying too. Like it was grieving. I thought maybe if I could save it, maybe that would mean something. Victoria felt something crack inside her carefully constructed walls. You've been doing this for free? For weeks? 2 months, actually, Lily piped up helpfully. Daddy used my bike money, but that's okay because the house needed it more. Victoria looked at this child, no older than 8, with her earnest eyes and paint-splattered overalls, and felt tears threaten for the first time in years. Your bike money? Marcus's cheeks flushed. Lily, that's not... It's true, though, Lily insisted. You said everyone deserves to be cared for, even houses, especially sad houses. Victoria sat down on the porch steps, her designer suit somehow not mattering at all in that moment. This house was for my mother. I bought it to surprise her, to give her somewhere beautiful to spend time together. She always wanted to live in a place like this. But I kept delaying, kept saying I was too busy. And then she got sick, and her voice broke. She died before I could show her. Before I could tell her that she mattered more than any board meeting or quarterly report. Lily, with the fearlessness of children, sat down beside Victoria and took her hand. She knew, Lily said with absolute certainty. My mommy knew I loved her even when I was too little to say it right. Mommies always know. Marcus watched his daughter comfort a billionaire, CEO, and felt his heart simultaneously break and heal. Miss Chen, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have... Victoria, she interrupted. Please, and you should have. Someone should have. She looked at the mansion, really looked at it, seeing not a failed project but a labor of love. Show me what you've done. For the next hour, Marcus walked Victoria through every repair, every restoration. He showed her how he'd preserved original details while modernizing. Structural elements, how he'd saved the hand-carved banisters and restored the stained glass window in the entryway. His passion was evident in every word, his respect for the craftsmanship that had built the place decades ago. Victoria found herself laughing. When Lily showed her the secret reading nook they'd created in what used to be a water-damaged closet, crying when Marcus revealed he'd restored her mother's name that had been carved into a door frame, something she'd told him about, in one of those early notes she'd never responded to. How did you know about that? Victoria whispered, running her fingers over her mother's name. You mentioned it in an interview 5 years ago, Marcus admitted. You said she carved it there when you first bought the house. Said it was her way of blessing the home. I found it under 6 layers of water damage. Took me a week to restore it properly. In that moment, Victoria understood something profound. This man, struggling to feed his daughter, had spent his precious time and money honoring the memory of a woman he'd never met, respecting a grief that wasn't his own. I want to hire you, Victoria said suddenly. Not just to finish this house, but as the head of a new division. I want to restore forgotten buildings, places with history that deserve to be honored, and I want you to lead it. Marcus stared at her. I don't have a college degree. I'm just a construction worker. You're an artist who understands that buildings are more than wood and nails. They're memories and hopes. They're monuments to the people who loved them. Victoria's voice was firm with certainty. That can't be taught in any school. But there was more. As they talked into the evening, sitting on that restored porch while Lily dozed against Marcus's shoulder, Victoria made another decision. She'd complete the mansion not as a mausoleum to what might have been, but as something living and useful. It would become a community center, a place where families like Marcus and Lily could access resources, where single parents could find support, where memory could transform into action. Your mother would love that, Marcus said softly. I think she would, Victoria agreed. I think she'd love that something beautiful came from all this grief. 3 months later, the mansion opened its doors. Marcus had finished the restoration, leading a team Victoria had funded, creating jobs for a dozen other workers from Millbrook. The grand opening featured a scholarship fund in Sarah, Rivera's name, and a children's library named for Victoria's mother, Helen Chen. But perhaps the most important moment came when Victoria presented. Lily with something, a restored vintage bicycle that had been found in the mansion's garage, probably belonging to some long-ago child. Victoria had it completely refurbished, painted Lily's favorite shade of purple, with a bell that chimed like music. "Every girl deserves her bike," Victoria said, kneeling down to Lily's level. "Especially girls who understand that sometimes the most important thing we can do is care for what others have forgotten." Lily threw her arms around Victoria, and Marcus watched these two people, his daughter and this woman, who'd been a stranger months ago, embrace with genuine affection. He realized then that fixing the mansion had never been about the building at all. It had been about three people learning to let light back into spaces that grief had darkened. Marcus had rebuilt a mansion, yes, but in doing so, he'd rebuilt something more important, the belief that kindness ripples outward in ways we can't predict, that selflessness finds its own reward, and that sometimes the broken places we restore in the world are mirrors for the broken places within ourselves. As the sun set over Elderwood Hill, the mansion glowed with warmth and life, filled with laughter and community, no longer a monument to what was lost, but a celebration of what could be found when people choose compassion over convenience, connection over isolation, hope over grief. The house was no longer sad. Neither were the people who'd saved it.